Nancy Pelosi is cashing in again.
Mr. Reagan.
All right, so I've talked recently about, what I think about the FBI, what I think about the deep state. And we've discussed how a lot of the machinations of the deep state are just mechanisms by which people can get rich, right? People can make money. And one of the things that the deep state facilitates is the wealth accumulation of members of Congress. And one of those members of Congress who has cashed in the most, and I mean by a long shot, is Nancy Pelosi. In fact, most of the wealth that Nancy Pelosi has accumulated in her life, and her husband has accumulated, has been due to investments about which she's had inside information because she is a prominent member of the House of Representatives. In fact, for many years, she has been the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And she's also gotten some bribes from companies. We've discussed that in a previous video. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. Not only is Nancy Pelosi unbelievably corrupt, but even her father, who was the mayor of Baltimore, was totally corrupt. And not even just like, well, we think he might have been corrupt, like people that he was taking bribes from were prosecuted and convicted of offering and providing bribes to him, but he was never arrested, he was never prosecuted, nothing like that. So we know he was criminal. We know he was corrupt. And it seems like Pelosi has just followed in his footsteps. Even Nancy Pelosi's son was involved in some corruption, and he was involved in a company in which I think every single person at the company was arrested except him. So there is this, I don't know how Nancy Pelosi does it, but she seems to have friends in all the right places. Nobody ever prosecutes her. Nobody ever investigates her. Her son gets off scot-free. Her father got off scot-free. Now, her father apparently was friends with J. Edgar Hoover. So I assume that there are some people still in the FBI who are looking out for Nancy Pelosi, which is sad because the woman is an absolute criminal. But since the deep state has taken over again, right? Because you think, well, Biden must be helping her. A lot of people might think, well, Biden's facilitating these things. No. Biden is the clown, the puppet that they're putting in front of the camera saying, oh, yeah, make your mouth move, puppet. And he's saying all the things that they're telling him to say, poorly, I might add. He's just signing the documents they tell him to sign, the crap they put in front of me. Okay, what am I signing now? I don't know. Other people are controlling all of this stuff. And Nancy Pelosi is happy as a clam because she can now engage in the same kind of corrupt behavior that she was engaged in during the Obama administration, during the Clinton administration, whenever a Democrat's in power, and actually probably even at times in history when certain other people were in power that we thought were decent Republicans, but perhaps were more involved with the deep state than we thought. We're starting to discover that this may have been a problem even with some Republicans in power. But the weird thing about Nancy Pelosi is she's very obvious. She's very obvious about just raking in cash from, through knowledge that she has because she is Speaker of the House. Now, there was a law passed that has attempted to curtail this kind of behavior with members of Congress. But Nancy Pelosi does not seem to care. She is just completely and very obviously violating any law with regard to inside information, any law with regard to investing in the stock market, and she's just going forward with it. She's having her husband do the investments for her. Now, what everybody's saying is, on the left is like, oh, Nancy Pelosi, she doesn't know anything about this stuff. These investments are just really smart investments by her husband, who just happens to be a really good investor and like super lucky and just happens to invest in all the right things. And it's just a total coincidence that laws and executive orders seem to get passed at just the right moment to make them a lot of money. That's just a total coincidence. Yeah, sure it is, guys. Now we're going to get into all the details of this in one moment. First, I have to sell you something.
Now, over the past 4 years, we seldom heard the word inflation. But last month, the inflation rate in the U.S. had the highest rise in 29 years. You heard that right, 29 years, 1992. Now, that's a problem for all of us with the price of food and gas and everything else going up. But it's terrible if you're planning on retiring soon. You need to put up an inflation dam to stop inflation from wiping out the value of your savings and your investment. And it's not too late. Noble Gold specializes in retirement planning and IRAs, so their team of experts, well, they're your first stop and they make it incredibly easy to do so. Now this month, they are offering a 1-ounce American Eagle solid silver proof coin with every IRA or 401k that you take out. And look at this box they give you. I mean, it's so nice. It's such a beautiful little thing, and then you get this little felt coin holder, and you open this beautiful thing up, and what do you got? Oh yeah. This is honestly one of the best ones they've sent me. They've sent me several coins over the past couple of years to present to you guys, and I love this one. I love this one. Actually, Valeria is trying to buy a case for all the coins because she loves them as much as I do. We love these things. Beautiful. I love all kinds of American imagery. I love American history. So this kind of stuff, yeah, just a little touch of history sometimes, a little touch of Americana. I love it. So they're offering these solid silver proof coins with every IRA or 401k that's taken out. Now, not many people can relax when inflation is this high, but like thousands of others, with Noble Gold, you're going to be okay. Visit the website at noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com.
All right, so this is an article in Zero Hedge, beautifully written, by the way, and it says, Pelosi's husband bought Amazon calls before Pentagon Jetty shakeup sent shares soaring. I'm not really sure what Jetty is. Apparently this is something that Microsoft, like a department of Microsoft or a software from Microsoft, something like that. Anyway, Pentagon killed it, paving the way for Amazon to succeed, and that's how Pelosi got all this money. Did really well with these options because he had bought these Amazon options just before Microsoft was hit. Amazon being a competitor of theirs, their stock increased and these options were worth more money. That's how I understand it. All right, so let's read this. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi disclosed from her ivory tower late last week that her investor husband, Paul Pelosi, made several now profitable trades in various securities. For starters, Pelosi bought Amazon calls on May 21st when it closed at $3,259.05. Fast forward 6 weeks, and great news for Amazon after the Pentagon pulled the rug out from Microsoft's $10 billion Jetty cloud computing deal, opening the door for Bezos, and the trade is looking great. And I mean, this is a huge story. This is a huge story. This is corruption in the federal government that is obvious. You know, I didn't mention this in the previous two stories that I did, but all of these stories should be huge, huge stories. I mean, if the kind of stuff that was happening in Biden's family, happening Trump's family, it would just been news 24/7, right? If this kind of stuff was happening if a conservative politician was milking the system the way that Nancy Pelosi does, it would be on the news 24/7. The news is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Okay, so let's look here. That's not all. Paul Pelosi on May 21st spent up to $250,000 on 50 Apple calls. These are options that have a strike price of $100 that expire on June 17, 2022. He also bought 20 Amazon calls costing up to $1 million that have a strike price of $3,000 and also expire on June 17, 2022. Now, I don't buy options. I'm not in this world, so, but I'm sure a lot of you guys understand this better than I do. But on June 18th, Paul Pelosi exercised his Alphabet call options, giving him the right to buy 4,000 shares at a price of $1,200 a piece for $4.8 million. The Alphabet calls options were originally purchased on February 27th, 2020. The transactions were disclosed in a filing on Friday. According to Fox Business, that was July 22nd. So this news is a little bit old, but I'm on vacation, so you know this stuff's a little old. And nobody else is covering it, so you can only hear it here anyway. Now, according to Fox Business, this is the most laughable part of this whole thing. The speaker has no involvement or prior knowledge of these transactions, adding, the speaker does not own any stock. It's laughable. There's a tweet from somebody named CongressTrading.com, who apparently looks at these things. And they write, Pelosi purchased multi-million dollars worth of FAANG and NVIDIA call options in a report out minutes ago. The Pelosis have at least one ardent defender in former Representative Jill Long Thompson, who insists that even though Paul is married to the House Speaker, it's unlikely that he would have any information that somebody else wouldn't. How could he? How could he possibly? Adding, members of Congress make it clear what their positions are on these issues, and the fact that they're working on a piece of legislation, well, that would be public information. This is ridiculous. I mean, the whole concept, the whole idea that Paul Pelosi doesn't have inside information through Nancy Pelosi, it's laughable. It's laughable. Their defense is laughable. On June 11th, the House Judiciary Committee advanced several bills with bipartisan support which would limit the powers of FAANG companies. The bills, which passed through committee by slim margins, have yet to be voted on by the House. This is not the first time that investments made by Paul Pelosi have been made in close proximity to happenings in Congress. Paul Pelosi in March exercised a $1.95 million worth of Microsoft call options less than 2 weeks before the tech stalwart secured a $22 billion contract to supply U.S. Army combat troops with augmented reality headsets. In January, he purchased up to $1 million of Tesla calls before the Biden administration delivered its plan to provide incentives to promote the shift away from traditional automobiles and toward electric vehicles. So, these are instances where, okay, he's like, you know what I think is going to do well? Microsoft. And then, boom, suddenly there's a $22 billion contract between Microsoft and the U.S. Army. He's like, you know who I think is going to do well? Tesla. He buys some Tesla calls. Boom, the Biden administration signs an executive order to make all federal vehicles electric. Give me a break. This guy has the most inside information. It's absurd. Roger Ver on Twitter writes, the SEC is a joke. And then he posted a little meme about this Tesla deal. Nancy Pelosi is a crook, you guys. She is an absolute crook. The only reason that she keeps getting elected is because the people of San Francisco are morons. That's the only reason. People in San Francisco are just so obsessed with the gay thing, they don't care about anything else. They're like, oh, Nancy Pelosi supports us gays. She must be fabulous. Let's keep voting her in. Even though she is a criminal. You should not care what she pretends to support. You should not care if she's a Democrat like you. All you should care about is that she is a criminal. You guys, vote her out. Vote somebody else in that's not an obvious criminal, okay? I don't care if they're a Democrat. Vote in a gay Democrat in San Francisco. Just don't vote in a criminal, you idiots. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Nancy Pelosi is probably the biggest criminal in Washington, D.C. at the moment. I mean, the Clintons are right there with her, but, I don't know how to deal with it. That's one of these problems that you've got where you have the system of government that we have where you can get somebody that's so unbelievably powerful, but she keeps getting elected by a very small part of the country. It's like, why does Nancy Pelosi control so much of our lives? The people of San Francisco keep electing her. It's like, geez, and I don't even think the people of San Francisco want Nancy Pelosi to do the crap that she's doing. I don't even think that they want her to do that stuff. But, maybe they just enjoy having such a powerful person in Congress. I mean, I assume that she's, obviously good friends with all the big tech people, and so they can influence the federal government through her, and so they keep wanting her to be elected, I'm sure. But, you just need somebody who's not corrupt in the federal government. Of course, Democrats want corrupt people because they can control them better, and that's basically how the whole deep state system works. But, we need to fix this. We need Pelosi out. I would love to see Nancy Pelosi go to prison. She is an absolute criminal, and she needs to go. All right, guys, remember to check out my other channel if you haven't done so already, Mr. Pagan. That's how I'm trying to keep, stay on YouTube, because YouTube is really cracking down. I mentioned this in my previous video. Some of my Mr. Pagan videos are doing better than my Mr. Reagan videos. And I only have less than 20,000 subscribers on that channel at the moment. So, that just goes to show how unbelievably suppressed this channel is. I can barely... I can barely get any views on here anymore, so I have to do some other more drastic things. So check out that channel. It's all comedy, but it's pretty good stuff. And I will see you again tomorrow, hopefully, or the next day or something like that. But I'm going to keep producing these videos here from Hawaii. I'm trying to get back into shape. I got terribly out of shape doing this channel. I blame you guys. You keep watching my show, and I keep thinking, oh, this is good. I'm helping to shift the culture. I become kind of like laser focused on things. If I have a job or I'm doing something I think is important, I'll really sacrifice a lot for that. And I sacrifice my health for this show. So I'm here in Hawaii. I'm trying to run every day or ride a bike or play some tennis, do some cardio, lift some weights, and we're doing good. We're making great progress. I'm working out about 2 hours a day. And so hopefully I can get back into shape. Some guys, they're bigger guys and they look good as a big guy. I don't ever felt like I looked good as a big guy. I grew up like a skinny guy. So hopefully I get back into shape and hopefully our country gets back into shape. All right, guys, well, that's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they know so much that is not so. Good night.
We have so many people who can't see a fat man standing beside a thin one without coming to the conclusion the fat man got that way by taking advantage of the thin one.
There are going to be millions of Democrats that are going to vote with us this time around because they too want that promise kept. It was a promise for less government and less taxes and more freedom for the people.